ultimate NRL experience. With non-stop action and top-notch analysis, this is the podcast for all rugby league fans. So join us for a deep dive into the world of rugby league and don't miss a beat of the action.
We're back. It's another episode. It's the Gone for 10 show. Like you just saw on the screen, we're going to be talking about the Brisbane Broncos, the Newcastle Knights, and apparently a top 4 contender in Ricky's Raiders, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Baxter, mate, how are you going today?
Mate, I'm very, very well. Sun isn't out, so I'm still peeling, but let's rip into this.
Well, we'll rip into it. Obviously, Baxter, you can't see it right now, but by the time this video does get posted, in that corner just down there, you're going to have Payne Haas smiling really big, really bright, and that's because NRL is back, obviously, this weekend with the trials. We won't talk too much about them. We'll review them because a lot of first graders aren't going to be playing this week, but you're going to have a lot of games. Football is back, but let's jump into what we're here. We'll start with the Brisbane Broncos. I'll throw it to you. Talk me through their losses and gains for 2023.
Well, notable losses for the Brisbane Broncos is Tyson Gamble, who's gone off to the Knights, got Zach Hoskin to the Panthers, Jermaine Asako to the Dolphins, Ryan James, should I say, not James Ryan, retired. Brenko Lee off to the Dolphins, Tamari Martin off to the Warriors with that player swap with, I believe it was Reece Walsh. We got David Mead, who's also retired, and Jake Turpin off to the Roosters. Now, the big ins, or say ins, I wouldn't call them big ones, is Murray Powell, Reece Walsh, Tyson Smoothy, and Jock Madden. There's some good depth for the end, but these losses, this is a club that was supposedly building something towards the future, and they sort of settled on a 6, got rid of him, settled on another 6, got rid of him, and then comes in Tamari Martin, and they just offload him, which I think is a big loss. So then again, Reece Walsh, and I don't think it's he said he's in a moon boot, so we'll see if he's ready for round 1. Mate Powell brings experience into the forward pack, and the rest is all up to them. What about you, man?
Well, obviously, firstly, touching on Walshy, obviously, he is named to play this week, so they will get their first look at him as a player. So that's obviously shown that, that moon boot was precautionary. Now, I look at those losses, like you said, the big ones, I guess you could say, Asako, Tessie New, who can be explosive, Tamari Martin. He's a bit of a loss, but he didn't play too much last year. So I think they'll be fine without him, especially with Walshy coming in. Jake Turpin to the Roosters. I'm still undecided on how that one will go. Obviously, the Roosters now, it looks like an absolute masterstroke because you lose Connor Watson for almost half the season, which we'll talk about when we get to them. So Turpin could be a massive loss to Brisbane because he does give that explosiveness out of the hooker position. Now, I look at their games, Reece Walsh, on his day, his quality. Now, you look at the Warriors, you look at Brisbane, you put in Brisbane about 5 or 6 places above them every year when you do your predictions. So I think him going into this squad, he no longer needs to be that player that needs to have a hand on the ball here, a hand on the ball there, a hand on the ball here. He can just be like that Tedesco, like that Dylan Edwards. He pops up when he's needed. He catches the ball. He throws a flick pass. He scores a try, so on. Marty Tapau, if he can stay fit, I'm going to say he's more important than Reece Walsh into this squad. He has the explosiveness. He has the mongrel in him. He can put a big hit. He can cop a big hit. So you look at a side that finished 9th last year. If Marty Tapau can stay fit, stay strong, stay healthy, I think they're going to go one step better and they will be in the 8 next year. But I guess my only question to you, weighing up the losses, weighing up the gains, weighing up all the other teams that we're going to talk about, does this side go one step better and make that top 8?
Nothing to be biased here, but I don't believe they will make the 8. They will drop into the bottom 9 position. I just don't see them really progressing with the squad they have. It's a bit of a chop and change. I know I believe I read some of the Brisbane Broncos fan pages, and Kevy's neck is on the line. Apparently, there's like 12. It's 10 to 12 games in, and if they're not sitting comfortable, I think it'll be early doors for Kevy, but hopefully not. But again, I got him in my bottom 9 to 17, and I see him having an early Man Monday.
Well, I guess, there's nothing wrong with an early Mad Monday. So if you want to get on the beers, maybe do what they did last year, start the ground, hit it ground running, and then obviously fall apart. But obviously touching on quickly, they are playing the Gold Coast Titans. It's not going to be full-strength teams. The players I'm looking forward to seeing, obviously, Walsh is named at fullback. Flegler's named at the 8. Payne Haas is in the squad. Billy Walsh is on the bench. Marty DePau is on the bench. So I'm kind of excited to watch those players come in. Ezra Mann, all those players, Sags, they're all playing, but you really want to watch how Reece Walsh fits into this squad and how Payne Haas fits into this squad. But again, they are just trials. So we take them with a grain of salt and we move on to round 1. But moving on to the next team, it is the Newcastle Knights. Now, last year we sat here. I sat here. I said they were absolutely terrible. I said they were shit. I said they were going to do nothing. They rocked up in round 1 and put an absolute score on my team. So we don't know what they're going to do, but come the end of the season, I feel like I was justified in what I said. I had them 15th and they finished somewhat there or thereabouts. But Mitch Barnett from the Warriors is a loss. Jake Clifford to Hull. Tex Hoy to Hull. David Clement to the Tigers. Edric Lee and Milford to the Dolphins. Jura Mamesa to the Eels. Chris Randall to the Titans. Pasami Saulo to the Raiders. And Susa Seya to Hull Rovers. Their gains, Adam Elliott, Tyson Gamble, Jackson Hastings, Jack Hetherington, Greg Marshall, and Lachlan Miller. I'll go first on this one. I think Jackson Hastings, you put him in there. There's a bit of experience now in the halves. Greg Marshall, we know he can be explosive. Adam Elliott, he can be explosive. Tyron Gamble. I think they're finally building around where they're not just relying on Kalen Ponga. You've got someone that can control a game. You've got someone that can move the ball around in those halves positions. Again, he's coming off a big injury at Brisbane where his knee got twisted, but we'll see how he goes. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, of all the 17 teams in the NRL, this is the most trickiest one. Rumours were that Kalen Ponga went down, injured only a few weeks ago. Rumour was that he was training in the halves. Now, do you have him as your 6, or do you have him as your 1? If you have him as your 6, then who's your cover for 1? That's where I really like Tex Hoy. He was a great cover for that fullback role if and when Kalen Ponga went down or went to State of Origin. But if you played him at fullback, I really like Jay Clifford. He's an ex-Cowboys player. He can really control that 6 jersey, especially now that he's got Jackson Hastings with him, who could sort of take some of the weight off his shoulders and give it to him. And I think Jackson Hastings can cope under a bit of a pressure of wearing the 7 jersey. So, again, I think this is more so they let players go early and then brought in other players and gone, they've sort of took a gamble, so to speak, with the players that they recruited and lost. Adam Elliott, the big signing, replaces David Clemmer. Look, it's not a big loss for David Clemmer. He's, 32, 31. He's going to the Tigers. Look, he's not going to be playing Origin anymore. So Adam Elliott's the way to go. He moves up there with his girlfriend, Tyson Gamble, again, another great player for the Knights. Jackson Hastings, Jack Hetherington. I think Jack Hetherington just really, if he can control his anger, I think he can be one of the most young, explosive forward men in the game. That's just if he doesn't spend some time on the sideline. And Lachlan Miller, I think he could be another great addition to the Newcastle Knights. Now, I'm saying all that, I don't have him in my top 8. I think this is a rebuild year, but rebuilding in the right direction. I don't think they will be under the pump too much this year. I think they'll push teams to the limit. And Adam O'Brien, Adam O'Brien will keep his coaching credentials for another year. Now, I know you have put it up on our socials that you have him as your first coach to go. We'll talk about my coach to be first to go later on because that team hasn't come up yet. And I think we all know who we're talking about down in the Wollongong area. But again, I think this is one of the exciting teams. It's most confusing and it's most exciting. I think they're going to, just be there. They're going to push for the 8, but I think they'll fall short, unfortunately.
It's an interesting one. I have them nowhere near as high as you just said. I think it's going to be another dismal season for Newcastle. Yes, they've got Jackson Hastings in there, but I think this is still a team that is very heavy on the likes of Kalen Ponga now. An interesting transfer to me, Lachlan Miller. He comes in, he can play fullback. It was a very late move in the market where they did pull him across. So is that something in the back of our head saying, okay, Kalen Ponga is going to the halves? If he is, I don't really think you need a Jackson Hastings, but we'll see how that one plays out. We'll see if he's fit. Obviously, neither Lachlan Miller or Kalen Ponga are named. It's Bailey Hodgson starting at fullback this week. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Billy Slater's come out and said that regardless of where Kalen Ponga plays, he's going to be playing in at number 1 for Queensland if he is fit. So read into it what you want. Maybe he knows a little bit more. Maybe he is going to go in the halves, but like you said, the only difference to me is it's going to be an interesting team to watch, but I think they're going to crumble, and I've got them between my 12th and 17th position come the end of the year. I'm going to say 8 to 10 points back from that top 8. I just don't think they can get enough points. But Backstart, there's one team, and it's going to cause a bit of controversy, this next team, because where they finished last year compared to where you think they're going to finish this year, given their ins and outs, is a bit questionable. So I'm going to throw it up on the screen. It's the Canberra Raiders. Adam Elliott, they've lost him to the Knights. Josh Hodgson to the Eels. Mr. Shans Nickel-Klostak to the Warriors. Harry Rushton to Huddersfield. Ryan Sutton to the Bulldogs. And Sam Williams was released. Their only gains for 2023, Daniel Levi, Atam Maroto, and Pasami Saulo. So, first of all, we said we weren't going to release exactly where we thought teams were going to finish, but you have a very interesting perception. So give me a 4-position bracket of where you think this Raiders team is going to finish and talk to me about their season.
I think they'll finish in the top 8 for sure. The way they finished the back end of last year,
You cop out.
Look, we've already had it on the screen that I've got them in 4th. I have them in the top 4. I just believe that the way they played last year, they lost their halfback early. Then they lost their 9 virtually within the first 20 minutes of the first game of the season. Then they sort of went into a dull period. They got back their halfback and they went on this massive run and made finals football, which they ended up going down at AAMI Park down in Melbourne and knocking off the Storm. Given that, if they can keep that momentum and that they can play that sort of footy again and they push it to the start of the season, I had that, like, they could have been pushing top 4 last year. So that's why I've got them top 4 this year in 4th. And look, to the 2 biggest outs here that for me is Adam Elliott and Chaz Nickel-Klostak. We just spoke about the Knights, how a massive gain that is for the Knights with Adam Elliott. They haven't, to me, I don't think they're really replaced is the word I would say. Like, they haven't really replaced a like for like. Maybe they're going with some youth and maybe getting some bench players to start. Chaz Nickel-Klostak, I think, is one of the worst losses, like, for Canberra. I think he should be the starting fullback. Hopefully he kills it over in the Warriors jersey. But again, I just look back at that, like, last 10 games, and it was basically 2009 Parramatta, where Parramatta needed to win the last 10 games, and out came the Hayne plane, and blitzed them off the park, and they made eighth, and they went on to the grand final. I'm not saying that they will get there, but I think that they will have this good run down in Canberra. Ricky's got his group nice and tightly wrapped up, and mate, I think Canberra's going to be another fortress where teams are going to go there and they're going to be like in the old early 90s and go, oh, I don't want to play there, especially middle of winter.
Well, firstly, no one ever wants to play there in the middle of winter. It's got nothing to do with a fortress. It's got to do with minus 10 degrees weather and you're freezing cold. Now, I think you're absolutely batshit crazy. You talk about the Hayne plane. Funnily enough, I did see the Hayne plane today. He was walking through DFO in Homebush while I was having lunch. But you talk about a Hayne plane season. I talk about a Stephen Bradbury moment. The Broncos, the Dragons, Manly, the Bulldogs. All these teams fell to absolute shit the last 12 rounds. And here comes the Raiders, one arm in a freaking sling, a broken leg, and they stumble their way into the final. So, yes, they won the game.
They beat Storm again. They beat the Storm, so I reckon they can do it.
They've got Storm's number. You can just put that out there, but you look at them, and they weren't very convincing last year at all. They just scraped in. Top 8, I'm probably going to give them a chance. Top 4, I think you're crazy. You're going to have the Panthers again. You're going to have those Cowboys there or thereabouts. You're going to have the Roosters. You're going to have the Rabbits. I just think those 4 teams alone, you then chuck in the Sharks if they can continue their form. Parramatta if they continue their form. I've wrote off Storm in my predictions. I've said 6th to 8th, but when you write off Storm, you do that at your own risk. So there's a lot of teams in there, so I cannot see them making the top 4. I'm going to say 7th or 8th position at best for the Canberra Raiders. Looking at those ins or outs, I'm almost saying they're not going to make the 8 at all. But Baxter, you love this side. You absolutely love this side.
I do have a soft spot for them.
I don't know why. I mean, I've always had a soft spot for Ricky Stewart, obviously, since he was at the Roosters. But obviously, he knows how to get people in. He knows how to G people up. He knows how to make them crazy. But more importantly, let's add the senior consultant, Mr. Madge, Michael Maguire, is obviously down there helping Ricky Stewart with this side. So before we do wrap up this episode, talk to me about what you can expect from Ricky with Madge's advice. Is he going to be more of an assistant coach and an NRL consultant? Like, how do you see this one playing out?
Oh, I see him more as an assistant coach for sure. The weight of being the head coach is off his shoulders, so to say. So he doesn't have to worry about the wins and losses. He has to just make sure the boys are right, ready for game day. And that's basically it. That's his job done. His job is really, if they're playing Sunday to Sunday, he's Monday to Saturday. Get them right, get them fresh, get them ready, prepared, and then it's all Ricky. Look, we've heard from Sam Burgess, we've heard from other players around the game who have been under him down in Melbourne at the Tigers, who have heard of these army camps that he goes on, these just crazy army camps. And I reckon he's going to have these Canberra side just rock hard, fit, ready to go, especially when you got Jack Wyden in the 6. He's just going to rip, tear, bust through the defensive line of any team that he comes up against, I believe. That's where I just see a little bit of...
Will he bust through the defence bigger than what he bust through Latrell Mitchell, or is that too soon to talk about until we have the investigation?
Look, it was playful wrestling. Like, we're on Canberra. It was down in Canberra. It was playful wrestling. I guess, as not a spectator, but a person, a third party, they're looking from the outside in. You look at 2 guys having a wrestle. You sort of whip out your phone and go, "Oh, Latrell Mitchell and Jack Wyden were having a bit of a wrestle, and what's of it?" But it was all playful. They were good mates. So there was nothing in it. They've come out and apologised, but people are calling for him to be stood down. Some people are saying they should be stood down, pay a fine.
Well, I will say, we've spoken about this team today, so I'm going to bring them up and I'll let you have another say on that. But Payne Haas, Albert Kelly. We don't know what's happening here with Latrell and Wyden, but if there was any punches thrown, Payne Haas was suspended for 1 game and a $10,000 fine.
2 games.
Albert Kelly was also suspended for 1 match.
I thought it was both of them for 2 for the The
No, so
stepping
it
on
was a suspended
shoes.
sentence. No, this was the punch
Fair
on, not the
enough.
stepping on shoes. This was the punch on. They got into an integrity unit. They said we had a bit to drink. It was a push and shove. A punch was thrown. So when this footage comes out, when the footage comes out, I guess if you've suspended one, you've got to suspend the other. You've got to have. We always call out for. We want the same rules for every single player in the league, no matter if you're $1 million player, no matter if you're a $100,000 player, no matter if you're a rookie. So for me, I think it's a bit controversial that they are playing in New Zealand in the All-Star match. Why there's a pending investigation? Now, they're still got to appear in court. So for me, if that's a normal human being, they're not flying to New Zealand because they're now a flight risk. So that's an interesting one. But give me your final thoughts on that. What do you think? If Payne Haas was suspended, do you think these guys deserve to be suspended?
Look, if punches were thrown, yes, suspend them. If they weren't, it's a different boat because they'll just play wrestling. And but we don't know if it was nothing really bad in it. I just not even a game. I think it's just more of a suspended sentence and some money thrown at them as a fine to pay up. But the difference with as you said, a punch was thrown with the Payne Haas thing, so. I don't think there was any punches thrown here, so it should be all good from my end, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll wait and see for what comes out. If they are innocent, if it was playful, I hope they do get nothing. If it was anything serious, well, then they get what they deserve. I think both boys are mature enough to understand that. But Baxter, we will wrap it up there. That's been Brisbane, Newcastle, and the Raiders. Now, guys, we have gone up quite slowly. We are sitting at 184 subscribers as of 10 minutes ago. So we are 16 away from that 200 subscriber list. So again, let's try and get there. I'm not saying by the end of this weekend. I'm not saying by the end of next weekend, but let's get there before the season kicks off. Let's try and get to that 200 mark, and then we'll build consistently from there on. But Baxter, thank you for joining me. We'll be back. We'll pick another 3 random teams that we'll review shortly. But thanks for joining me, mate. Go to Roosters, and I think you're delusional that the Raiders are going to make the top 4.
Come on, Ricky.
For the best season yet, you'll see.